Now, it was meant to be a bit of friendly advice to take a look at what could be a matter of life and death. An email published today revealed the medical director of the NHS in England told his counterpart in Wales that death rates in 6 Welsh hospitals ought to be investigated. Sir Bruce Keogh described the figures as worrying. Similar types of data provided the vital clues as to what was going appallingly wrong at Stafford Hospital. But the Welsh authorities so far say there's no need to make further inquiries. Whatever the data, some Welsh families believe they've been badly let down. Our policy editor, Chris Cook, has been to meet one of them.
Noah's birth and condition, I guess if you want to put it that way, was as a result of the birth. Thus, subsequently, his death was. And because he died and the situation around it, the coroner had ordered an inquest, which no parent should have to sit through.
Noah Tyler died, 10 months old, in December 2011. A coroner ascribed his death to a gross failure in the care provided to him and his mother, Colleen Tyler, at the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff.
Once they managed to get Noah stable enough for us to go upstairs, we got to go see him. He was in an incubator on a cooling mat where they had to induce hypothermia for 72 hours to try and stop some brain damage. He had tubes and wires going in and out of everywhere. So that's what that was the birth of Noah.
His is just one of the cases that have contributed to high death rates among the hospital's patients. Now, a senior medical official who has just completed a review of 14 low-performing hospitals in England wants an inquiry. Sir Bruce Keogh, medical director of NHS England, wrote to his counterpart in Wales to suggest that he too should hold a similar investigation. Sir Bruce said that there are 6 hospitals in Wales, including University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff, that show persistently high mortality rates. The letter itself is pretty extraordinary. Sir Bruce, an official with responsibilities in England, takes direct issue with the quality of care in Wales. He said that those hospitals with poor mortality statistics warranted investigation, and admitted he was worried about the political implications of that information. Mortality statistics need to be treated with caution, but they can highlight serious problems. In England, it was analysis of mortality numbers that first highlighted the horrifically poor levels of care in Staffordshire. The Conservative MP who uncovered Sir Bruce's email says Wales has failed to learn the lessons of that tragedy.
I think this is particularly appalling because this is so reminiscent of what we saw with mid-staffs, is that very, very worrying data is produced, and instead of saying, goodness me, what should we do with this worrying data, let's investigate to make sure there isn't a problem, the reaction is immediately, no, there's nothing wrong with the data, nothing to see here, carry on.
Sir Bruce's letter also drew attention to the difference between NHS performance in England and in Wales. Almost half of all Welsh patients wait longer than 6 weeks for an MRI scan. In England, fewer than 1% do. More than 10% of recent Welsh accident and emergency patients were kept waiting for longer than 4 hours. In England, the equivalent number was under 5%. The NHS in England is very different to the NHS in Wales. Whereas England has tried to drive up performance by using private providers, lots of data and lots of targets, Wales has largely kept to a rather old-fashioned, centralised form of management. The real question is whether that's now going to have to change. For today, ministers are fending off Sir Bruce's critique. They say that they do not believe an inquiry is necessary, but others disagree.
I hope and I pray that they will do something and they will look into it, because I can't get Noah back. My husband and I will have to one day explain to our son why his big brother isn't here. And we have to live with that. And the people that have lost their loved ones also, they can't get them back, but it kind of takes away any sort of positive meaning that can come from our loss if they aren't even willing to look into it and to make changes, and to call it unnecessary is just a slap in the face as far as I'm concerned.
Well, with us tonight from Cardiff is the Welsh Health Minister, Mark Drakeford. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Firstly, just to be clear, when your health service gets an email from Sir Bruce Keogh, that's something worth paying attention to, isn't it?
And it was. It received very clear attention and very proper attention too.
So when he, the most senior doctor in NHS England, says 6 of your hospitals ought to be investigated, why on earth would you not launch an investigation?
Well, that is absolutely not what he said, and your report has very badly misrepresented Sir Bruce's email, as well as being very badly factually flawed in a number of the assertions that it has made.
Well, Mr Drakeford, may I just quote you then, the email? And
You
I
may.
quote directly, "I am worried about the broader political implications of the data," he writes. "There are 6 hospitals with a persistently high mortality which warrant investigating." Now, he goes on to say he's not been able to do his own checks on the data, but he says, again, it would seem sensible to investigate. Now, on whose planet is it not worth at least taking a second look at this?
Well, not on our planet, certainly, because we do take a second look. And you're absolutely wrong to assert that we did not. Had you gone on and read the rest of that email, you would have found Sir Bruce saying that he didn't have data to validate, he didn't have data that bore out the data that had been passed to him. He was giving it to us to say it's worth investigating. We did. We publish our mortality data every quarter. It shows the mortality rates in Welsh hospitals have improved quarter on quarter.
Is Sir Bruce happy then now with what's happening? Because he says quite clearly in this email, despite the fact he's not been able to check the data, this warrants investigation. It would seem sensible to investigate, he says. Are you saying he is wrong? Is he happy now?
I think I've just explained to you 3 times that we have investigated the data. And the data is published for everyone to see. It's published every 3 months.
Is Sir
It's
Bruce
published
satisfied
every
then?
hospital. It's not for Sir Bruce to be satisfied or otherwise. Sir Bruce has no part to play in the Welsh NHS, nor was he claiming to have one.
But he wasn't claiming it was up to him. But you established that it was worth paying attention to what he has to say.
He very properly passed on information that had been passed to him, saying to us that he thought we ought to look at it.
So
we
you
did
have
exactly that.
So you have concluded, after what you're saying was an investigation, even though you apparently have officially refused to have an investigation, that there is absolutely categorically no problem here in your view. You're saying that on the record.
You are mixing up several things. You're asking me to agree to an assertion of yours, which I certainly won't.
Well, no, I'm asking you to respond to the quotes directly from Sir Bruce Keogh.
You give me a chance and I'll do just that. I have become coldly furious during today at the constant misrepresentation of the position of the health service in Wales. A misrepresentation that is deeply politically manipulated and driven. Here in Wales, we take data very seriously. If we are passed data, we investigate that data. We have done so in relation to mortality figures. They show quarter after quarter that mortality levels in Welsh hospitals have improved. Does that mean that everything is as it should be? Of course not. Does it mean there is not more that we could do? Of course there is. But does it mean that there is some deep crisis in the Welsh NHS? Absolutely, certainly not.
OK, well, Welsh Health Minister Mark Drakeford, thank you very much indeed for joining us and answering our questions from Cardiff tonight. Now,